Hey, how are you?
Hi, great. How are you doing?
Good. Welcome back.
Thank you. You too.
We had our first conversation and I think we thought there's so much more that we can talk about that we decided to follow up with a second conversation.
Yes, and probably another at some point too. So there's a lot we can talk about for sure.
This may keep going. Did
Yeah.
you want to take anybody can refer back to the first episode that we recorded,
Yep.
but would you like to do a quick intro?
Yes, of course. I'm Jasmine Winier, military spouse. I am not a currently active realtor, but I have held my license in Washington State and in Connecticut, and have PCS'd multiple times, about to in the next 6 months as well. So happy to be here.
Yay. And I'm Jill Ward. We currently reside in Hawaii, retired here, have been here, stationed here several times, PCS several times, and then pretty much have bought almost every place we lived other than Japan. So
That's impressive.
understanding the purchasing power and what it can get us financially for our family. So
Yeah.
that's been the benefit for us.
Yeah. And you're licensed in Hawaii as well.
I'm licensed in Hawaii. I did hold a license. The very first time I had a license was actually in Charleston in South Carolina.
Nice.
But came back to Hawaii and I've had it here now for, gosh, I think I've been doing this for about 15 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Not full time
Yeah.
at the beginning. I didn't go full time till 2017, but
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. Other things going on. Yeah. And I started in 2020, so at a really exciting time. And, and depending on where we are, I've had my license or not, just because we move a lot. So,
well, I find it ironic if people go back to the first episode that you had your first involvement in a home purchase during 2008 when the market was crashing. Yeah. And then you got your license when we had the unicorn years, right?
Yes, it was quite interesting. It was quite an education. Yeah.
You've been through both cycles.
Yep, I have. It's been quite fun, actually. Educational.
Very. Live and learn.
Yep.
Speaking of that, when do you feel like I almost always buy, and I know the reasons why I shouldn't, but
yeah,
talk a little bit about kind of when you would decide to rent, buy, live on base.
Yes. And I think this is a very relevant conversation for us right now. So we're in that debate currently. And so we're moving up to Maine, to Kittery, probably in about 6 months. And it has been a huge conversation in our house where we are looking at what base housing gets us, what our BAH is, of course, that's always extremely relevant. And what the rentals look like. I will tell you right now, rentals are very, very scarce up there. So that's almost immediately off the table for me because I don't want to be competing for a rental if I have other options. The other thing about up there is it's kind of similar to Connecticut in that utility costs can actually be pretty high. And so that's also a consideration. I know that's a consideration in Hawaii as well. So that's something that we always factor in. And the other thing about base housing is, when we're thinking about base housing, it's really my husband's commute will be a walk to work. And so that has been very enticing for us, but a lot of me feels a little bit sad because I want to buy. And it's just been a very difficult, decision. I will also say the prices up there are fairly higher.
How does BAH, one of the things that we look at all the time, right, is how does BAH compare to what the rental values or purchase power is? Is it comparable?
Yeah.
Apples to apples, or is it a lot less? Is BAH a lot less?
I would say it's pretty comparable right now. I would say it depends on where you're looking. If, with most places, if you go a little farther out, you get more for, your money. But then you're sacrificing like commute time, right? So
and family time. Yeah.
family time. So I was looking at Wells. Wells is a little more affordable. That's in Maine. North Berwick, that's more affordable, a little further out. So, and my husband has made it pretty clear that he does not want a long commute. So for us, I'm kind of sticking it, staying pretty close within a 15-minute commute. And I think that we probably could get something that would use up all our BH plus some. But it also comes down to, do we want to pay closing costs? What would we do with the house when we left? Like, we know for a fact we're never going to go back to Maine.
Right.
Like, that is not
cycle through very often. Yeah.
It really doesn't. There's not a lot of opportunities up there. It's a shipyard. And so I think it's just very relevant right now because it's been a big conversation for us. And I think we are actually leaning more towards base housing at this point. And I think it's mainly because I think the commute is a huge thing right now for my husband. So, I would say that at different points in our lives, that has been less important. And right now for him, that seems to be extremely important. So
yeah,
I can find a really good deal. So
that would swing the pendulum the other way.
Yeah, I mean, if there was something, really close by that, would work for our BH, we probably would consider it. So.
And I think, another thing that draws people to base housing, especially when you have littles, right, is that community of having other people close by, who understand the lifestyle and kind of that community, raising your child in a village of sorts.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can speak to that as the only other time we lived in base housing was actually in Hawaii. And it was a very tight-knit community that we were in there. And my daughter was born there and my son was turned 3 when we first got there. So it was really, really nice to have that support network in that village for us then at the time. And, it just worked out really well for our time there. And we were only there for 22 months. It was a pretty short period of time that we were actually there for it.
Which goes back to when do you rent, when do you buy? Looking at the length of time of the tour sometimes plays into it. The reason why we had access to McGrew as well, and we chose not to because, and it's all right. This is not a judgment zone. This is all what works for you at what chapter in your life.
Absolutely.
And, my husband didn't like feeling like he went from work to living with people he worked with.
Yeah, for sure.
Very clear. I work and then I go home. And so that was, in addition to the investment aspect of it, that was the other reason why base housing didn't necessarily work for us.
And like I was telling you before, looking back, I'm like, buying in Hawaii probably would have been a really good move, but
investment wise.
Yeah, right? Investment wise, it would have been fantastic. But at the time, and it was the right decision for our family.
Absolutely.
So, and I think that in making this next decision, whether or not we do base housing or we purchase, it's going to be the same thing. Like, what is the right decision for our family at this juncture? So.
Yep.
It remains yet to be seen. I mentioned our Excel spreadsheet before. So I've been populating that Excel spreadsheet and, trying to decide what the right move is. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, let's say, for example, so many times you move and there is no base housing available.
Yeah. Also true.
Right. And so you might not want to buy. You might not be able to base for a while. Maybe you need a rental.
Or there's the wait list that is super, super long,
and you're just not going to it's not going to make sense to move twice.
Yeah, for sure. And I will say, the other thing that has factored into our decision for buying up in Maine is there are a lot of historic properties up there. And I think it's important to understand that when you buy, you do need to have reserves as well. For any repairs or anything that comes up. And I think just investment wise, it's something that's really important to do.
Yep.
And so, sometimes I will see people just go into it, not realizing that, your main water line could break tomorrow. That happened to me. So, and fortunately I did have reserves that was able to cover it. But I think making sure that we're purchasing smartly, so a lot of the houses I'm looking at around like Portsmouth area are 1800s, built in 1905. I'm like, oh, I love
Gorgeous,
it, but
gorgeous, amazing details.
beautiful.
Like I geek out on old homes. I just totally,
They're so beautiful. Yeah.
But your point being that old homes have old bones and old components.
Which sometimes is a good thing. Sometimes though, you definitely just want to make sure that you're prepared, I think.
And get a really, really good inspection. If not multiple.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If not multiple inspections when you're buying in historic areas, for sure.
Yeah. And so that's been another thing that, I've thought about a lot. And like I said, the fact that we probably won't be going back there makes that decision tough. And to that point, I knew we're probably not going to go back to Hawaii. Even though it is there is, quite a bit of subs there. We just knew that it wasn't, we weren't going to pick it again.
Yeah.
So I had some island fever when we were there. Even though it was beautiful and we traveled a lot, between the islands, I definitely missed the mainland a little bit. So
yeah, it's not for everybody, and it's not for everybody long term.
Yeah. I mean, that's what's so nice about it. It's not everybody ends up there.
Yes. No.
Not enough room.
You're correct. My heart landed here. I can't imagine, even as we go through our different chapters in life, though, it's like, okay, you have kids, and then, okay, the kids are in school. So after the kids are out of school, what does it look like? And, for us, we can't picture ourselves anywhere else, but
anywhere else. Yeah.
Time will tell. Time will always tell.
It does.
Very specific challenges. If I can go off on a tangent for a minute, when you
please.
Not only do you have the distance, right? Physical distance. If you have an emergency or anything on the mainland, there's a physical. I've had several instances with my parents, right, that I can't get there right away.
Yeah.
But I've gotten there, which is fantastic. But you have it, right? You have shipping your goods issues. You have to plan on 60 plus days sometimes to receive.
Yes, you do.
You have to ship your car. Only one car gets paid for. So do you leave a car? Do you bring both cars? Those kind of conversations. A big one is pets. Right?
Yeah. Yes.
So making sure that your pets are vaccinated, and the rabies issue, and there are companies that can help you with that. There's lots of information on. We had obviously the issue when we moved to Japan. We had the issue when we moved back to Hawaii. So there are very specific issues, not only when it comes to purchasing or whatever, but when you are PCSing to Hawaii, there are a list of specific issues that you need to be aware of. And I think it's really easy for people not to be aware of them.
Yeah, I agree. I remember it all being a surprise to me when we were getting ready to move out there. I was like, wait, what? And the pet thing, especially because we still have our golden doodle. And it was a lot of things I, was doing last minute, which I think that made it a little more challenging. So, which was, exactly. But yeah, that being said, I don't know how we managed it, but our move there was quite smooth, and our move out of there was quite smooth too. So
very good.
It doesn't always happen though. You never
the worst sets of movers ever. We moved back from Japan. I can go off on a tangent on this, but basically they had taken a bunch of our stuff, and they had threatened me. They knew that, you're here alone with a baby. Oh, your husband's not around. Leave in this room. Oh, your electronics are here. And it just was an absolutely horrible day.
Oh my gosh.
Got an alarm system installed the next day, did all the things.
Yeah, of course.
But you have to just be, when you are PCSing, and especially if you're PCSing alone, certain things you need to be aware of, and you need to know what your resources are. And, I would advise that it's hard, but whether you're going to, whatever your spouse's command is, or your command, depending on who's watching this, have that one person, at least have that one person, that mentor, or however they pair you up, or a friend of a friend. I could call you, Jasmine, and say, hey, I'm getting ready to go to Georgia. Do you know anybody right now? Or
absolutely
Facebook boards, right? Or another groups and that kind of stuff are a great place to, hey, I'm moving down.
Yeah.
Can I have a contact? People will jump up and say, yeah, or I'm
they will. Yeah.
So I think knowing where you're going is important, and having a resource there is important.
I completely agree. And that is one of the first things I do when we get orders, even verbals, is I go on Facebook. And I don't know if everyone has Facebook, but I do. And, it's what I use a lot. And I find my local communities. I just type in, like militaries, like there's a Kitsap one, there's Hawai'i one. I mean, they're all over the place. And be sure that I'm, doing my little search, because that's usually what I do, and just looking for resources. And it's also a good way to find out if you already know someone there, because you can kind of figure out. And sometimes it's been really fun where I'll be like, oh, I know her. Yeah, we lived together. We had crossed paths when we were in, Hawaii together, or Washington together, or whatever. It's really nice to be able to reconnect, or make new friends, and just make sure. I agree with you. Making sure you have some support on the ground when you arrive is really important.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Is there anything specific? Hawaii has a long list, just because we're out in the middle of the ocean and we have so many unique cultural and other issues. Anything Groton specific that you think you could share?
There's a couple of things that catch people by surprise. The first one's a little gross, but we have a lot of ticks out here. And this actually catches a lot of people off guard. Someone in my husband's command the other day went on a run in the woods, and my husband was like, hey, you need to check yourself. And he was like, oh, I had no idea. So it's something that is very surprising to people, but we are very close to Lyme, and that is where Lyme disease originated. So not to, go off on that tangent, but that's something that surprised me when I moved here.
I had no idea. No idea.
Oh, really?
No.
You did it. Yeah, it's a thing, and it's very unfortunate. But it's a situational awareness, just being aware of yourself, your surroundings, and, just checking yourself. So that's something very specific to Connecticut. It's something I tell all my friends, all my clients, just make sure you are aware of that. I know Hawaii has their own bugs and stuff, but I don't know if it's quite the same. I don't know if it's quite the same, because here you can pick it up anywhere, walking in the woods, whatever. So the other very specific thing that I told you about last week is the property taxes here. Definitely a little on the higher side. I think we're maybe second or third in the country. I'd have to double check my stat, but it's pretty high.
Can I ask, do you know approximately what the percentage is? I don't mean to put you on the spot.
I'd have to check, but each town is different in the state of Connecticut. So the town of Ledyard is going to be different than the town of Norwich. And then there's special district taxes as well that can then make it even higher. So it's something that, I always tell people to really, really pay attention to, because that changes your monthly payment significantly. So if I'm going to buy a similar priced house in, say Waterford versus the same priced house up in Norwich, like looking at your mill rate, which there's some resources out there if anyone actually is moving to Connecticut and wants to, I can send that to them, or they can Google it online and see. But your mill rate is going to be really different from place to place. And that will then change how much you pay annually in property taxes, which then changes, how much you pay every month. So that's something that I think is super, super important, because a lot of people tend to look at just the price of a home, and they don't actually, dive deeper into it. And because I know for me, it was a shock when we first started paying our mortgage here. I was like, why is it so expensive? Because I
thought our mortgage payment was X.
Exactly. Right. I had made assumptions, and I probably wasn't paying close enough attention. So that's on me. But I'd also owned homes in, states where the property taxes were definitely not nearly as much as they are out here. So something to be aware of. I think is important.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. There's more than just your mortgage.
Yeah.
Taxes, insurance, all the things you mentioned all play into it. Bills, utility bills, and all of those things.
Utilities. Yes. And out here, there's a lot of oil, oil. So that's also important. It's like, that can be market dependent. That is market dependent.
For sure.
And so that's something, having maybe more diversified heating sources in the home could be important. I mean, we have oil, so we
Okay.
have oil, we have electric. And I kind of have an idea of how much it costs to fill my oil tank, but it definitely varies from year to year. So it's important to be aware of that.
No, yeah, that's a very good point. If I can take that point and go off on a little bit of a tangent to talk
Yeah.
about affordability in
Yeah.
Hawaii. So
Yes.
in a little bit of what you're talking about too, advice to everybody would be, you can call a mortgage lender. We can talk about a couple of different things on this front, actually. You can call a
Yeah.
mortgage lender. I think we should put, if we do this again, when we do this again, we can talk a
Mhm.
little bit about VA loans maybe and our experience with
Yes.
loans and
Yes.
some tips and tricks.
Hmm.
Zero down isn't necessarily zero down, but
Nope.
affordability here, when I first started, I had a lot of military clients.
Hmm.
And I have friends across different, branches and different services. But the affordability here has changed so much in the last 10 years that
Yeah.
many of my clients are no longer military. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
the area where we spent most of our lives in Kailua,
Hmm.
you can no longer pay a mortgage with BAH, even at the '06 level.
Really?
Really. So you've got to be
Wow.
looking at, I'm willing to put in my COLA. I'm willing,
Mhm.
we might be a dual working family.
Yeah.
That's how we can do it. So when we talk about the windward side, the affordability factor is a big deal. When you look
Yeah.
out at the west side, the EVA side, where
Mhm.
a lot of people will go because it is more affordable. And
Yep,
when I
that's
say more
right.
affordable, I'm saying $700,000 price points versus $1.5 million price points.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at lending, you may talk to a lender. I promise I'm bringing this all back. They may
Mhm.
say you're eligible for $1.2 million. You're eligible for
Right.
$8 million.
Mhm.
Again, especially if you're dual working spouses,
Yeah.
doesn't mean that's what you want to buy. You really,
No.
you really have to. But I think people get excited, right? People go,
Yeah.
$1.8 million house. Well, you can, but let's look at what your monthly is going to be. And this goes back to
Right.
what you're saying, right? Okay, so
Yeah.
what's your monthly mortgage going to be, plus insurance and taxes and all of the other
Mhm.
numbers go into that. You really need
Mhm.
to have an idea of what your monthly is going to look like, and if you're comfortable
Yes.
monthly.
Yeah. I think the monthly is so important.
And then where does that price point then bring you? Right? Does
Yeah.
it bring you down to 1.2? Are you going to be more comfortable?
Mhm.
You're eligible for 1.8,
Yeah.
but do you really need to be around 1.2? Do you really need to be around
Mhm.
1 for your
Yeah.
lifestyle and how much you want to pay? And then take
Yeah.
things into consideration.
Yeah. Like, where are you going to take it from? Like, what sacrifices are you going to make? And does this make sense for you? Because, I mean, you don't want to be house poor. Like,
No,
it's
no.
not a fun place to be for anyone.
No,
So,
and it goes back to your reserves too, right? It goes back
yeah.
to the comment that you need to be able to not only afford your payment, but
Yes.
what happens if you need
Right.
to be able to have
Your
a
main
little-
water bursts, what happens then? And homeowners insurance does cover some of it, but maybe not all,
Yeah.
and there could be some other things that happen that, aren't worth putting a claim in, that you need to jump into your reserves for. You just, you don't know. And same
life.
with, yeah, in life. Exactly.
Your kid can
So,
get sick, or your car can, be totaled, or,
yeah.
anything. So just keeping
Yeah.
all of that. I don't think either of us would ever preach. I know I've turned people away from buying. I've advised them not to buy. I
Yeah.
don't think it's for everybody. I don't think it's for everybody at every chapter in their life.
Yes. Yeah.
So really, I think part of the counsel that we help provide sometimes is
Mhm.
saying, you really got to figure out what your monthly is. You've really got to figure out what you're willing to do and how much you have as a cushion. And I don't want to know your personal business, but I
Yeah.
want to know, I want to know enough to be able to help guide people.
Right.
To this is the price point you should be in. And I'm not going to push you
Yeah.
into another one. This is
Mm-mm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that goes to, really caring about I care deeply about every person who I've helped. And, I never want to see anyone, feel stretched or, not good about something they did. And I think making sure that they have the tools to think about all these things is really important. And, maybe that means that base housing is the right answer. Maybe it means that renting for a little bit is the right answer. So I think there's a lot there, and it's important to always be self-aware, in any situation, know what you can and can't do and what you're comfortable with and not comfortable with. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. And sometimes I've even, spouses aren't always on the same page.
Yes, that is true.
Right. So I think
yeah.
sometimes we act as mediators,
Mhm.
and providing the data. Here's the data.
Yeah.
You want the data, right? This is a fun, exciting thing to do, to own your own home.
Mhm. Yeah.
But you also need the numbers to figure out what's.
Mhm. Yeah. And having a good lender who can run those numbers for you too, because I have one of our local lenders who I've used out here or suggested, I recommend, several lenders, and people use whoever they want. But one of them, he will actually calculate monthly payment for you based on a variety of variables. And I've always suggested that people talk to him and just make sure that, they're getting fully informed before we even write an offer. When I was licensed there.
Yeah.
So yeah, just making sure that they understand, okay, what's that actually going to look like?
What's it going to, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And, another thing about Hawaii is we discourage mainland lenders.
Oh yeah.
We really focus on local lenders. And it's not nepotism or anything,
Yeah.
lie. It's the fact that mainland lenders don't understand the way our process.
Yeah.
They're not as communicative. And so when you're a buyer, if you're on the buyer side and you're looking for a loan, the sellers want to know who you're borrowing from. Everything here is so relationship based.
Oh yeah.
Things start to go awry and I'm the seller's agent. I want to be able to call that buyer's lender and say, what's with this loan? Not to violate their privacy, but everything's so relational. So really, USAA does not do a good job out here. I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying this. Navy Fed, I don't recommend. I think I heard a rumor that USAA is always the highest for insurance out here. Always.
Oh,
like
interesting. Wow.
I think they have too many policies and their risk, right? And all these other things. Yeah. I actually heard they're turning people away at this point.
Interesting.
Okay. For insurance, not for loans necessarily, but
for homeowners.
For home, yes. But so that people can use your realtor as a resource, we're going to point them to a lender who is going to do you the best service because we've worked with them before. If they're within a driving distance from wherever you are. Yeah. So really, it makes a difference here to use a local lender for communication and so that they understand the process because it's different than it is on the mainland to buy a house here.
Yeah, it is. I'm sure it is. I mean, I love local lenders too. I always remind my clients that it's their loan and they can use whatever lender they would like. But I do think it's important that I let them know this has been a wonderful lender I've worked with in the past, and just make sure we give them a variety of options and names, and have them determine for themselves what will work best. But local lenders have been fabulous when I've worked with them. They've been great.
They know they know the local market issues.
They do. Yeah, it's been very helpful.
Yeah. Well, speaking of local markets, I think another thing, I can speak to several, you can speak to several, but I think it's important to let people know that we have other contacts in other places.
Yes, we do. Yes. I have, referral partners in quite a few places, notably Washington State, where I was once licensed, and DC, I would say are my two most active ones. And they've, worked with my friends and clients before in the past, and I trust them and have sent people to them, and, they know their local markets really well. And it's been really nice to be able to send people to, someone local who I know and trust. Especially Washington and DC are I feel like a lot of people I know have actually ended up moving there. Yeah. So it's on the circuit.
Yes.
So
yes.
What about you? Do you have anyone you like to?
I do. And I think it goes back to, I have most of my people. So I'm involved in several national organizations. So I really have some interesting, if you're going to Kansas City, I got a person. If you're going to
That's awesome.
I got a
I
person.
love it.
I got a guy. I got a guy.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the submarine community, I think you and I obviously we've worked together before.
Yeah.
I think we know a lot of people around the 7 or 8 sub bases, right?
Yes.
You know
Yes.
somebody, you have a referral partner. Most of them are
Yes.
male spouses. I'm not,
Mhm.
1 or 2 are not. I'll be honest,
Yeah.
we're not. Most are male spouses and most are sub spouses.
Yes. Yes.
And again, it's that small community, right? We can touch,
Mhm.
it's like we're talking about local lenders. You want
Yeah.
somebody that you can depend on and that you can reach out and touch super easily, that you have an existing relationship with. So
Yeah.
very fortunate to have partners across the country. Again, through I coach on a national level, and then I'm involved in a couple other national masterminds.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's been very
Yeah.
good. So if anybody ever needs anybody, we're
You
here
got
to
'em.
point in a direction for somebody who cares and knows what they're talking
Yes. Absolutely. I agree completely.
about. Yeah. Anything we didn't talk about today that you kind of want to wrap up with?
I think that we're good. I mean, if anyone has questions, type them in and email us or anything, and we're happy to answer them. But yeah, I think we covered a lot, and stay tuned for what we end up deciding to do for base housing versus buying.
I love that.
I'll let everyone know in about 5 months, 4 months. So we'll see.
We'll follow your story like a soap opera.
Yes, it'll be very nice and dramatic. Hopefully not too much drama.
Not too much drama. But again, you've got the tools and the resources to make an educated decision, and that's what you want to do.
Absolutely. And a spreadsheet. So, what more do you need?
If you're married to Submariner, there's a spreadsheet somewhere close by.
There's a spreadsheet somewhere for sure.
Well, thanks for doing this with me again. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Jill.
Thank
Looking
you.
forward to the next one.
I do too. Have a great day.
All right. You too.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.